Donald Trump is hearkening back to a time when black people were categorized as being subhuman. Using infestation, something you don't want, something that's despicable, something that's unneeded, something that you want to get rid of, and using that particular language whenever he talks about black and brown people is something that is not new. It goes back to a time of slavery. That is how black people have been categorized in this country. That is at the root and the heart of white supremacy and white nationalism. We can also take it back a little bit farther. We can talk about how in Germany the Jews were called an infestation. We could talk about in Rwanda there was a notion of infestation. This is what the term you use whenever you're talking about people that are the minority in the population that's not warranted, the population that's not considered to be in any way equal to or superior to the dominant majority. Donald Trump is not giving us new language. It is not surprising. What it is more frustrating than anything else, because what he has unleashed in this country, what he has allowed to have happen, what he has given the okay to, is this notion that you can say the deep-rooted racist things that you think about, the things you probably say at your kitchen table, you can now say them out loud. You can now call the cops on black people who are simply living their lives. You can now tell black people to go back and get out of the country. You can now tell brown people you don't belong here. What he is reminding us of is this sense that white men, some white men in particular, believe that America only belongs to people who look like them. That is what we're fighting against. That's what the real battle is against. The heart and soul of what this country is going to look like once his presidency is done. Because Donald Trump can be removed from office, but what he has unleashed will remain unless we fight it to the very end.
Particularly the phrase, no human being will want to live there. What that speaks to is the fact that in this society, when we, again, talking about the system of racism and white supremacy, we're talking about the fact that notions of humanity have often been reserved for white folks, that white folks have been able to construct a universe by which their collective interests are understood as universal and central. And so the idea that no human being will want to live there is a part of this kind of Negro-phobic aspect of our society, where all the kind of negative stereotypes are projected onto black people. But in many ways, white folks in their communities experience, or engage in many of the behaviors that we criminalize. So when you think about things like this, the notion of a drug dealer, right, and that the kind of societal image, right, is of black men. But when you think about, all the white men that are selling drugs on college campuses around the United States, right, they're not demonized in that same way because, again, their collective interests are understood as normative, they're understood as kind of the central aspect of the American ethos. Furthermore, particularly in terms of, all the investments that the president has made as it relates to, so-called border security, I think it's important to understand that that is the remnants or the manifestation, the extension of the system of white supremacy, the idea of being secure, right, from the criminalized immigrants that come into the United States. That language is language that is borrowed right from, when you look at Birth of a Nation, first major motion picture film in the United States that was screened in the White House that represented a black man, a white person in blackface, a black man as a brute. And one of the central storylines was him as a rapist. Right, so we're talking about the language the president and the conservatives use about immigrants borrows directly from the playbook of white supremacy that characterizes black people as inherently criminal, as inherently dangerous, as inherently pathological. And so, and I want to highlight something that Dr. Whitehead said that I think is really important, is that this is not new, right? This is not something that is emerging out of nowhere. That this rhetoric and this discourse is part and parcel of a society that is run in such a way that allows for folks like Jared Kushner to be able to have properties and treat black folks with a level of contempt, because that is just the very nature of the society that we live in. And so we have to attack the system of white supremacy and the prevailing notions of black inferiority that animate the institutions in such a way that then not only impact black people, but as we're seeing with the migrant crisis, with the immigration crisis on the border, impacts those policies as well.
Right.